Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the program. It's Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up. It's Tuesday. That means Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show. We'll have also Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel. He's a national college football writer. Get his thoughts on pretty much a halfway point of the college football season. If you missed it last night, I didn't get to see all of it, but I guess the Raiders had a chance to win the game with a 2-point conversion, didn't make it. Chiefs survived 30-29 in Monday Night Football today. Baseball playoffs crank back up. I think there's 4 games starting around 1 o'clock. So if you're a sports fan, you got a lot to watch today. And then we'll have Mike Morgan tomorrow. And I believe Mike is on a call tomorrow night. I think we start like Sunbelt games on Wednesday nights, which I love. Let's go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Buddy Martin. You can listen to Buddy Monday through Friday nights. Well, I don't know about Friday nights, but Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Facebook Live. Good morning, Buddy. How are you?
Good morning, Shane. Now on Sunday mornings with Ben Troop. We do our Aren't You Blue Bloods show, which has gotten very popular. And we want to get you on there one Sunday when you're coming back from someplace. So, yeah, it's fun. I'm doing good. I feel a little guilty, Shane.
Why?
I was kind of tough on the Gators defense. You shored me up a little last night on it. And I really kind of, got concerned about making all these 3rd and 28s and stuff. And it was very frustrating listening. I didn't go to the game Saturday. I'm better when I go. And I will be there Saturday night. But listen to you on the call and watching TV, and you and Sean, they were just gashing the defense in the fourth quarter. And I thought, this brings up memories of somebody before when it was called 3rd and Grantham. And I thought, what is going on here? And I got a little harsh on them. So I probably should back off and really say, hey, big win, nice W, got through it. There were some good performances, but it was a very frustrating and nerve-wracking game, Shane.
Well, it was, and I've had a lot of people. I want to give thanks to the Orlando Touchdown Club. I was there last night. Great group. Spoke with them. And I had a bunch of people ask that as well. Look, we know that we don't know the calls, okay, but there's percentages, and people should know now that Billy Napier is all into analytics and percentages. And you don't have to be into that to understand that converting 3rd and 10 or plus is extremely hard no matter what level of football you play in. So you play defenses to let the team throw a ball underneath, and then you rally and make the tackle and force a punt, okay? Well, obviously it was 3rd and 15, 3rd and 17. We had the right calls. Our guys took bad angles on a flat route, didn't use the sideline as an extra defender. We were a split second short on a corner route that we could have knocked down or intercepted. So you got to look at it 2 ways. A, we had the right calls, but our guys did not execute what they were supposed to do. And maybe they need to learn football a little bit better and understand the situation. There's no reason to jump a flat route. Let them catch it and go up and make the tackle. The other thing is the other team gets paid as well. They have good players and coaches, and you have to look at it that way. So I said this last night, buddy, when I was speaking to those people. I've had zero problem with anything that we've done from a coaching standpoint. Now, that's just my opinion. I look at it from a fan's perspective, a player's perspective, and a coach's perspective. I only have one gripe the entire season with a series of play calls from Billy Napier. And that was Saturday after the punt return by Xavier Henderson. We had momentum. We had tremendous field position.
Go up top. Go up top.
We had Missouri on about the 30 to 35.
Mm-hmm.
And if people listen to the broadcast, it's kind of a joke now. Shots with Shane, because
right.
I love to take shots when momentum changes in a game like that. And you couldn't ask for a better time to do it. We didn't do it. We ended up missing a field goal. We ran 3 times. I would have taken at least 2 shots or ran a reverse or something, because that is the perfect time. So other than that, I've had 0 problems.
Got them on your heels, make them pay, and that's an old Coach Spurrier. That goes back a long way. That's an old Johnny Unitas thing, and burn them right there. So anyway, I just want to say that, but I also want to say what I really like about this team, what I really like about it, because I was very critical in my articles and what I said about it out of frustration. And I like the fans. I kind of live with the fans. I know how they feel, and sometimes I become one. But what I like about it is this team is the playmakers. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing that now. You talk about Ventrell Miller, Jaden Hill. What a game those guys played. I mean, man, you couldn't ask for better. I mean, Ventrell Miller is slowly becoming one of the great linebackers in Florida football history. And without him, they lost by 50 points, I think. And then you got a couple wily veterans like that. And then you got the running backs, Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, and the offensive line, Osiris Torrance. All guys that I think came up and made plays and made a difference. And Anthony Richardson, when he had to, he tucked it and ran it, got it down there, should have scored probably. And that was a huge play, even though he had not a really good productive day throwing the football, 66 yards, etc., or running the football. But when they had to make the plays, they made them. Give me playmakers every time.
Yeah, I mean, winning the game is the bottom line, and being at 4-2 at the midway point, I'm pleased with it. I got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Mellon Law. John says, QB, I saw you had a comment on the guy that breaks down the Gators games. Do you agree with their film breakdown? Just curious your thought. I normally don't respond to that. I usually don't look at it, but I think he does a great job. And I forgot who does it. It's like the Gator Nation podcast breakdown or something. But again, he is not sitting in those meetings knowing what is called on both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. He was talking about Jason Marshall Jr. playing way too soft in cover 3. Well, in cover 3, your responsibility is going to get beat deep. And they were throwing curl routes. Well, give the other team credit. You're not going to stop every damn pass play that's called. Secondly, curl routes are usually taken away from by the underneath defenders, your linebackers, your outside linebackers. And those guys were, and what I responded with, those guys were the ones that were out of position, not Jason Marshall Jr. Mm-hmm. So I try not, I'm probably not supposed to chime in on those things, but when people don't really understand football and what everybody's supposed to do regarding, because if nobody goes into the flat and you're in cover 3, you don't go to the flat as a defender. You drop in the curl area. And so, long story short, I disagreed with what he said on that. But other than that, for the most part, he does it. Whoever that is does it.
I know him. I watch it and I talk to him and I like what he does.
He does, but buddy, it's no different. I know football very well. But for me to sit here and break down is not fair, because I don't know what those kids are being taught on those plays.
Yeah,
so
but I understand what you're saying, but you are a different kind of you have the expertise on your side. As a guy, and I know this guy, he does some stuff with Danny Werfel. He's pretty. I like his breakdowns because he visually draws it up there and tells you whether you like what he says or not, or whether he's correct on what he's supposed to do is another matter. But he does say when you're playing soft, he's playing soft. Whatever reason, I don't know. You know that theory. I don't know that. Yeah. But I like someone who draws it up and says, look at this, look at that, look at that.
Yeah.
Decide for yourself. Visually, you can see it, because most of us don't know that much about it. All right, I played the game at a very low level. I don't really know exactly what he's trying to accomplish. So people got jobs to do. This guy does a really good job, I think, in terms of visually showing you what he sees.
Yeah.
And why he did it, I don't know, but he does do a good job of telling you what he sees.
Yeah, and then I commented on one other play where the interception, and Anthony talked about it, was a great reads and going through his progressions, which I totally disagree, because the pre-snap read, when Anthony looked left, it told you that there were 3 Missouri defenders on our 2 receivers. You're off of that before the ball snapped. You're not even looking over there. Right. And he threw the ball late over the middle, and it was high. So I didn't think it was a good play. Again, I don't know what he's being taught, but from my pre-snap read was I'm not even going over there. We got a Facebook Live here, buddy, for you. Greg says, "Was that Buddy's Brian Kelly impersonation? Give me that Trevor Etienne pronunciation.
Etienne.
Trevor,
my Cajun friend, I did do a show with Rob Brown and some guy from out in Louisiana, and he said, "Tell your friends it's not Etienne." And he said, "He's from Louisiana." Says it's Etienne. I don't know how to say that.
So we should start calling him Trevor Etienne.
I'm not. I'm calling it Etienne. We'll have to get the correct Cajun. But no, Brian Kelly couldn't do as good a job as I did on that. I got it right from the Cajuns themselves. Etienne. So there you go. That's what it is.
So I'm gonna say that on the air Saturday.
Yeah, say it. Say this.
That's a nice run by Trevor Etienne.
I'm gonna give you the correct pronunciation. I'll get it for you and say what they call him in Louisiana. Then you'll have some really good insight. You'll see good stuff nobody else is gonna have. Do a good job, Shane. Do a good job.
All right, we got some Facebook. We got some tightening of our text. Let's get to these real quick, buddy.
All right.
This is from who is this from? Chris. He says, Shane asked Buddy if he still thinks AR can be a serviceable QB for the Gators.
Absolutely. I think he can be a star for the Gators. I don't think he's going to be a system quarterback and whatever. He is what he is. A good coach knows how to get that out of him. And look, here's the good news, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to go to the NFL. You think he will? I think he might look at this. Well, I mean, here's why. If I'm him, I'm saying I could probably make $700,000-$800,000 here and play football and help my team compete for an SEC championship, buy an insurance policy. And I'm not ready to go to the NFL. He's going to go sit. That's what he's going to do.
But, buddy, let me ask you this. Because somebody asked me this last night at the Orlando Touchdown Club. Because AR's gone up and down, great plays and really inconsistent.
Yeah.
What if he were to come back and you continue seeing that in his fourth year in college football?
Well, he wasn't good. Then he wasn't good enough.
Right, but are you hindering if we have an opportunity to play somebody else? You see what I'm saying?
Well, no, you want a guy who's going to be the best player for you in there. Never mind who's next. Let's give the guy a chance. He's a baby. You started, 7 games? And then when you get look, I understand.
I'm at the point now. He's been in college for 3 years. He's played enough football.
Well, okay. Well, well, he won. He's 4-2. So here you go. So I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm not telling him what to do. And I'm not saying that it would be the right thing for him to not to go and not take the gazillion dollars he's going to make and to his family. I'm not saying it at all. But I can see why, maybe, if he got really good sound advice to say, look, you're a hell of a football player. You're going to be a low first round draft choice or maybe even a top worse. You can be a top 5 pick if you play one more year. You can buy a $10 million insurance policy just in case, because you can get hurt anytime. And you can help this team win an SEC. I don't know. I'm just saying that's one side. I'm not saying that's what they ought to do. I'm just thinking it's in play. At least it's in play.
Yeah, but I try to look at it both viewpoints. If he does come back for another year, is it good for the Gators or is it not good for the Gators?
I think it's great for the Gators.
But what if he continues playing like this and everybody keeps saying he?
Well, look, I'm just
playing devil's advocate here.
Who's going to play better? Who's going to play better,
buddy? You don't know till you get an opportunity.
Well,
right?
But I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I don't know about Kidner or Miller. I don't know yet. I haven't seen them play at all.
Well, it may not be those guys. It could be somebody in the transfer portal for all we know.
Okay, fine. I think he's better than anything in the transfer portal. So that's my opinion. And I want to get to one thing about quarterbacks today. And what's so important, and there's things that happen in the second half of the season, okay, that are really critical. And I used to talk with a coach about residual impact of the SEC. You got to keep the team together the whole season. And things start breaking down the second half. There are discipline issues. Tennessee's star defensive back arrested for, and out now all of a sudden. One of the top tacklers. And Shane, help me with this. How many quarterbacks who started out this year, started the year as number one, are still playing, starting in the SEC?
What it
How many SEC starting quarterbacks are out right now?
You mean hurt?
7, Shane. 7 quarterbacks who started this season now are out and injured. And
all I can think of is Bryce Young, but he's playing this week.
Yeah, well, he wasn't though.
Will Levis will probably play this week.
But that's not who's going to play. I'm saying who was out this past week.
Well, I can only think of 2. Who else?
How about KJ Jefferson? Huh?
Yeah.
How about Max Johnson now being out?
I don't consider him.
And Miles Brennan, well, throw him at you, all right? How about Zach Calzada started the season as Auburn's quarterback? Okay?
No, he didn't.
Was in the season in the depth chart. He did, Shane. Anyway,
he didn't take a snap for Auburn.
But that was the start. That was the number one quarterback when the season started. Okay, you can go through the list. I have a rough assessment. I heard this number 7. Half the quarterbacks were out, and I went and looked at it. We know what happened to those teams that lost their quarterbacks. They got beat. Look at Arkansas.
Well, only 3 of them were their starting quarterbacks. KJ Jefferson. They were going to lose Mississippi State whether he played or not. Will Levis and Bryce Young. Those other guys were battling for jobs before the season started. So I'm going to argue with whoever put that out there.
They're not able to play. We're not. And my point is, I don't care if it's 5, 7, whatever. Things happen. People get hurt.
But those guys weren't hurt. They never played this year, buddy.
Okay.
I mean, Max Johnson got hurt.
I hear what you're saying. Jimbo Fisher says his starting quarterback was out too. He said
he's lying though, because
that's what he said.
Because his starting quarterback at the beginning of the year was Haynes King. Okay,
I get it.
Yeah,
but I'm saying that you can manipulate those numbers, but my point's still the same. You get people hurt. Things happen. In the back half of the SEC set, when you get banged up and bruised, you play Georgia the next week, you're going to be banged up, right? It's something that happened. Only to say that things happen. Part of the liability of keeping a team together, aside from injuries, is keeping kids eligible. So their grades, they lose players. Now Jalen McCullough was arrested and charged with aggravated felony assault in Knoxville now, and looks like he may be out for a felony assault. It's no small matter. I'm just saying it's hard to keep a team together, Shane, and it's part of the coaching job they're doing. So on that count, I think Florida's doing pretty good. Anyway, that's the point I want to make.
This is a text on the Titan Mark text line. Josh from Mississippi says, I think the Gators have a great opportunity this week to take advantage of the down LSU team. Billy may have something extra too. I think AR in this offense will put up explosive plays on tape. Your thoughts on that? I think LSU's pretty good on defense, quite honestly. The Tennessee had 3 touchdowns that went less than 20 yards because their offense put them in a bad situation. These teams are identical to one another.
They are.
They both have the exact kind of quarterback that's a better runner than thrower.
Mm-hmm.
They have so many questions at every other position. They're both 4-2. They both have new coaches. They both are trying to get their programs headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a carbon copy of one another.
Here's what's funny about it. Here's the difference. The funny part about it is, who's the leading team on rushing? Ain't LSU, it's Florida. Okay, that's what's funny. They've averaged 213 a game, and LSU's averaged 172. The passing team with the most yardage average, LSU, not Florida. It's flip-flop what it usually is. So so you're right though. They're very much the same. I guess Florida's favored by 3 or so, whatever. And I was talking to Matt Moscona from out in Baton Rouge, and he's on my show tomorrow night. This has been a bizarre series, Shane. We talked about it on my show last night, you and I. The games you remember and all the things that have happened way back since I can ever remember. Yet he pointed out that the last 3 coaches, and I haven't looked this up, no matter how bad they were at LSU, won national championships.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty good stat.
Yeah, it's a great stat. So I guess he goes back to the days of Saban, I suppose. And anyway, so that was interesting.
Saban, Miles, Les Miles, and Ed O.
Yeah, they all won national championships.
Yeah. Are you in the market to buy or sell a home? Darring Weeby, a realtor with Caldwell Banker, M.M. Parish, will provide you fast, friendly, reliable service. Call her today at 352-562-1411. to help your dreams come true. Speaking with Buddy Martin here on the Titan More Hotline, we'll be joined by Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel. He covers the entire country in college football. Get his thoughts. Buddy, did you? We've had a ton of people here talk about the roughing the passer last night on Mahomes.
Yeah.
Or no, it was the other way. I guess it was on David Carr. The NFL. Did you see the Tom Brady?
I did.
One?
Did.
That was one of the most ridiculous things.
It was
Tom Brady should have been penalized for kicking the defender. I don't know.
Yeah,
I obviously didn't see that, but I thought the penalty was going to be on Brady for kicking him.
I didn't see the kick, but I mean, I do know that there was a couple of really bad calls. How could there not be pass interference on the Buccaneer when the receiver who was open, the guy got mugged, and they didn't call that. That was a really poorly officiated game, really poorly. I don't watch the NFL that much. I just don't have time for it or bandwidth for it. But clearly, there's some strange things going on. So I don't know. It's look, Brady's going to get some calls, okay, that you wouldn't get. He's going to get.
I'll say he gets a lot of calls. We got a couple of Facebook lives here. John says, we got to win this game for Doran. He keeps having to pay all those bets off. With Peter Burns, he has to wear those silly outfits.
Yeah.
When's the last time we beat LSU, by the way? It's been like 3 years, I think.
3 years ago, was it? I lose track. I just remember the fog game. I was thinking last night it was last week. It was 2 years ago, the fog game, which is one of the most bizarre games I've ever seen in my life. And then, of course, was it last year they ran the counter play for about 1,000 yards and Florida couldn't stop. But I get them all mixed up. There have been some really bizarre games. I remember the game way back in the day when the kicker, when the holder dropped the ball or somebody picked it up and ran it in. You've seen those plays. You see and there's thrown shoe and all that stuff. And yet it has become, we talked about this last night, it has become, next to Georgia, the biggest game of the year for Florida in terms of rivalries.
Yeah, because they're a permanent West team. I think Tennessee's getting ready to get back into that.
Well, they are, but up till now, after 17 years, you can't say it was a rivalry and they lost 16 of them. But now they are. You're right.
Speaking of that game, Alabama's playing at Tennessee. Both teams are undefeated. Buddy, what do you think in that game? Since I won't talk to you until the game is over.
I know. I think it's gettable for Tennessee, but I don't think they got enough on defense. And Alabama's got just what they need when they need it. It depends on who plays quarterback, obviously. But I like Alabama, but I wouldn't be shocked if Tennessee beat them.
I think the only way Tennessee can win is if Bryce Young does not play. I think if he plays, he will throw for a ton of yards against.
Well, he's going to play. He's going to play.
Oh, yeah, he's going to throw for 1,000,000 yards against their secondary.
Yeah, they're really bad.
I think Alabama's front four is outstanding. I don't know if Tennessee can block them. I think Tennessee will move the football and score a little bit, but I think this game's not even going to be close. But I've been wrong a lot this year. Yeah. But I've seen both teams play a lot. Yeah. And Tennessee, they have a great offense, but it's not real complex. And I think Saban will have something up the sleeve for him. All right, so Scotty says, Raiders fan here from KC. Was at the Chiefs versus Raider game last night. And yes, I will admit my Raiders did ball out on that poor roughing the passer call from the refs, but minus some questionable decisions, my team made me proud of their efforts. Well, we appreciate you chiming in after a late night in KC.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty cool. I just got a text on the Titan More text line. They want to know when I'm going to have Frank Frangie on again. I talk to Frank every week. We discuss Gators and Jaguars.
Good man.
Yeah, we'll probably have him on here pretty soon because it's getting close to not midway point, but quite a few games in.
I'm with you. I'm going to have him on my show. I like Frank. By the way, just out of curiosity, did you see Damian Pierce's last 3 games? You know what he's done? You saw
he's a phenomenal running back. There's no question.
Get this.
Here's the only downside to Damian Pierce, because I watched a few plays in that game. He has trouble catching the football.
He don't have to catch it.
Well, they threw it to him like 3 times and he dropped it.
Sorry. Hey, Shane, listen to this. Game 3, 20 rushes, 80 yards, okay? One of them, big chunk. Week 4, 14 rushes, 131 yards. Week 5, 26 rushes, 26 touches. That's more than he handled at half the season in Florida. 99 yards. He's now 4th in the NFL in rushing yards, Shane, but he couldn't get on the field at Florida.
Well, he did. He just didn't get enough carries.
Well, that's what my point is. They didn't give him the ball. Give the man the rock. We all could see that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I always said he'd be a good pro, but I think he would have. And there's nothing he can do about it. He's not a great receiver out of the backfield. I think he could play on all 3 downs if he could catch the football. And he's on a bad team, so he's having a really good rookie campaign, no question about that. Buddy, so before we let you go, how you see this LSU game playing out?
I think it's a really tough out for Florida, especially now. The good thing for Florida is their whole left side of their offensive line was out last week. Strangely, their freshman tackle, who's really good, came up with something that hauled away in the ambulance on Friday before. And then left guard got hurt in the game. And, they just can't. They got to have those offensive linemen. I don't believe Florida should give up the yardage that they did to Missouri. But if you ask who's a better rushing team, I would think it had to be LSU.
But, buddy, let me back up. You heard what you just said right there.
Yeah.
Florida giving up all those yards to Missouri. Yeah. And we've given up yards to everybody we've played.
Okay, but Shane.
But what I'm saying is we have to accept it. We're not going to shut anybody down.
Shane. 3rd and 28 is not shutting. It's not. I mean, you can't give that up. Okay. I mean, you can call it what you want to, but 3rd and 28.
Players got to make plays. Players got to make.
Coaches got to get them ready to play. Anyway, the point is,
buddy, you can't call more of a prevent defense than what we had.
Because every time I makes a mistake, it's always the player's fault. The coaches never have.
Buddy.
Billy said they had some wrong calls. He said they had some wrong calls.
Because, buddy, here's Billy. If you have not learned this yet about Billy Napier, he ain't gonna call out his players. Have you heard him be negative towards?
Yeah, he said they had made some bad plays, but he said there were some bad calls. He didn't say go talk about who
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with that because if a ball is thrown at 4 yards and you have another 19 yards to go to get it, and he runs and makes people miss. That is not coaching. That is players not making plays.
So on one drive, if the team goes up 3rd and 16, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 28, that's all the coaches, players.
You damn right it is. Go back and look at the tape.
Yeah, okay.
Go back and look at the tape.
You asked me, and I told you they got to stop the run. They're not a good run. They're not a good running team. I just gave you the stats. Florida's better. And to answer your question, they're favored by 3. I think it'll be an electric atmosphere. If they can't, they got to continue on. I like the fact they only had 1 penalty. That's progress. The turnover ratio could get a little bit better, and Anthony's got to be able to make some throws. You got to complete one of the 66 yards of passes. But can they? Yes. Will they? I think they'll beat LSU. Yes.
Vince said it was 3rd and 22, not 28.
Yeah, but it was 2 penalties.
But regardless, we were in position to make the play, and we did.
2 penalties after that, 3rd and 22. I got it right here on my sheet. It was 3rd and 22, and they got backed it up to 3rd and 28. Anyway, the point is that, I got it written down on my sheet here. But the point is, I don't care if it's 22 or 28. It's the same thing.
Yeah, make the
tackle. And all of the same. Yeah, make the tackle. Make the tackle.
So what I said, you just made my point.
Be in position.
They're in position to make the play. They're not making the play.
Okay.
So.
All right.
All right, buddy. We got to get to a break because we got to get Matt Murschel on this program.
All right. Have a good one.
Who you got tonight?
I think I got to be sure. I think I've got David Whitley, but I'm pretty sure I got it. Of course, Lauren and my Gator Bait team. I'm really proud of. So we'll be doing that tonight on the show.
All right, good stuff as always.
Thank you,
Buddy Martin. You can listen to him on Facebook Live every weekday night
through Thursday
at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll be joined by Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel. If you got any questions regarding the Gators or any other programs in the country, shoot them our way. You're watching and listening to Pot Up Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Gator Nation. What am I talking about? Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Point's where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like the Keys Bar and Grill, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Le Macaron, the Gadget Guys, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, now selling Head Beer Coach, American Lager, in 16-ounce cans at Spurrier's, Visors, and Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. We'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. We're now going to head to the Titan MR Hotline, and we're joined by Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel. He covers all of college football. Good morning, Matt. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. How you doing this morning, Shane?
Doing well. I wanted to get you on. I mean, obviously, we talk a lot of Gators on our program, but you cover college football everywhere. First, let's start with the Gators. They sit at 4-2. I've said it's been a very successful year so far because I said going back in August, July, if they win 7 or 8 games, I thought it would be a phenomenal job by Billy Napier. Just from an outsider's perspective down in the Orlando area, how do you think the season's gone so far for the Gators?
Yeah, I think it's exactly how I thought it was going to be at this point. You look at what Billy had, kind of the challenge ahead of him, taking over this program. You look at the roster, you look at, where they needed to kind of go from there. And you look at the difficult September they had. You knew there was with those 4 games outside of the USF game. You knew there were going to be some challenges there with Utah and Kentucky and Tennessee. So for them to be where they're at, I think it's right there. You've seen some areas of growth and you've seen some areas of concern. I think the defense obviously has some issues, especially giving up big plays. And you look at Anthony Richardson. I still think there's lots of room to grow there from that quarterback. I think he's got some areas where he needs to get better. He still turns the ball over a little bit too much, but to be where they're at right now, going into this LSU game at that point, I think you couldn't ask really for any more except for them to be undefeated, which I don't think anyone would have thought of at this point.
Yeah, I get a bunch of questions here, but I'm going to answer Greg's. He says, it seems like when AR throws, he's standing on his tiptoes and leaning back a lot. Am I wrong? He's not fundamentally sound. If you've listened to my podcast for the last few years, I coached against him. Great kid, phenomenal athlete, will never be a great thrower. Will never. Just doesn't have the intangibles that it takes to do that. Doesn't mean he can't be a good quarterback. He just won't ever be a great elite thrower. Matt, we just got a text on our Titan MR text line. This is interesting. This is from Frank. He says, why is Oklahoma so bad? Their head coach is a defensive guru, but they can't stop anybody. It's interesting because those first couple of games this year under Brent Venables, I can't remember who they played. I think there were probably some cupcakes, but, you'd watch the game and regardless of who the announcers were, they're like, OU is back playing defense, and good Lord, they're terrible. They're absolutely horrible right now. What's going on up in Norman?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a concern for Oklahoma for even under Lincoln Riley. Their defense always seemed to not be up to par to what the offense was able to do. And there were a lot of times over the last couple of years, where they had to outscore teams. Basically, it wasn't the defense that stepped up. You thought that was going to change under Brent Venables, a guy who's a physically demanding, tough-minded, defensive guy from Clemson. They haven't been able to do that this year. I don't know if it's a case of not having the right players or the schemes, but I mean, the last 3 games have been awful. I mean, over 500 yards, of offense they've given up the last 3 games. They're not stopping anybody. And when they don't have their offense running well, like it did against Texas, where Dylan Gabriel, their starting quarterback, was out because of a concussion, They just had no chance, and I think that's got to be a concern. I mean, Ted Ruff is their defensive coordinator. There was a lot of questions when he was brought in by Brent Venables whether he was going to be the right guy for this. I think at some point he's probably going to have to make a change. I mean, they've got to do something because this defense is not going to help them out at all. And I think also what's hurt them a little bit is they're playing in a really deep conference. The Big 12 is probably its best it's been in a long time, from top to bottom. Used to be it was just Texas and Oklahoma and maybe Baylor. Now you're seeing Kansas, TCU, Kansas State. Texas Tech has played well. I mean, everybody in that conference is playing well. So for Oklahoma right now, it's just the fact that things haven't gone nearly as well as they thought, obviously, on the defensive side. They've got to find a way to flip that script.
Speaking of the Big 12, the UCF Knights roll into the Big 12 next year. I mean, has there been a lot of talk about that down in Orlando? I mean, obviously they're excited, but that's going to change the way they feel when they wake up on Sundays, week in and week out, instead of playing in the American or whatever they're playing in now, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of excitement for this move. I mean, not just the fact that you talk about, what it means on the field. I mean, you talk about off the field. I mean, think about going from making $7 to $8 million a year, part of the American Athletic Conference media rights deal, to making $35 to $40 million a year. I mean, it's going to change them. And I spoke with people who were at TCU in West Virginia about what it was like the year that they entered the Big 12 back in 2013, and everyone said to me it was game changing. I mean, the money came rolling in, the attendance was record breaking. They went on the road and went to some great sites. The Big 12 is the foundation is built on college towns, and so UCF's going to experience that. And I think what they've got to do now is they've got to make that transition to get their athletic budget up to speed. It's fine to be the top of the group of five, but you've got to all of a sudden get yourself up to speed of the Power Five, which means you're going to have to upgrade facilities a lot quicker than you normally would. You're going to have to make sure their donors are out there opening up their checkbooks and making sure they're giving as much money as they possibly can. You've got to change the way you kind of think about that. And it's difficult right now because they still got, 6 games in the American. They got to kind of wrap up the American thing right now and really turn their focus to the Big 12. It's going to happen very quickly, and I know they're doing the fundraising right now.
How are the people ever since Gus has taken over, the fan base? Do they enjoy having Gus there? I think he's a perfect fit for them. And you mentioned last night, because you were at or maybe it was Bianchi at the Orlando Touchdown Club. I think UCF is really going to benefit. They already have from the transfer portal. Quarterback from Ole Miss, wide receiver from Alabama, wide receiver from Auburn, tight end from Florida. It's just going to continue to be like that. But it's a good place to go to school, good weather. Now they're going to be playing big boy football. But is everybody happy with Gus Malzahn down there?
Yeah, I think in general, everyone's been satisfied. I mean, he's done a really good job, as you mentioned. He's hit the portal really hard. He's brought in a lot of SEC talent over the first 2 years he's been there. I think that's been a huge plus. When you start bringing in Power 5 talent, and you add those pieces to some of the guys you've already got. I think the biggest thing he's done outside of the transfer portal is recruiting. He's been a relentless recruiter, and he's recruited the Central Florida area really hard. There were years where it's hard to imagine that the previous or a couple previous regimes didn't really recruit the Orlando area very hard. And there's a lot of talent in this area. And Gus has changed that. Gus has said, we're going to recruit this area. He's gotten the top players now from Orlando and from Central Florida. He's gone around the state and got some guys that normally maybe would have gone to Florida, Florida State, or Miami. He's starting to add those pieces. I think he's using the Big 12 as obviously the recruiting pitch. And I think they're trying to do everything else they can to show to everyone, listen, come to Orlando. We're, as they say, this is the home of college football right now. And they're trying to get people excited about it. And so far it's paid off. Again, as you know very much, Shane, it's all about wins and losses. And as long as you keep winning games and you look good doing it, fans are going to be on your side.
John has a question for you here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Metal Law. Matt, nationally speaking, who is your biggest surprise and your biggest disappointment halfway through the season?
I would think, wow, good question. I would think the biggest surprise to me has probably been TCU. A TCU team that we thought might be better under, Sonny Dykes, obviously running that air raid offense. We thought they'd be, to see them where they're at, I think that's a surprise. UCLA is another one I would throw in there as well. UCLA has played really well under Chip Kelly. Obviously, they're starting to gel a lot in year 3 or so with Kelly. Biggest disappointment, I got two. Texas A&M and Miami. I mean, listen, two teams that were people thought at the beginning of the season were going to be top 10 teams or at least contend, for the conferences. A&M obviously has struggled offensively. Jimbo struggled at the quarterback position, which was kind of bizarre considering he's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer. And then you go to Miami, where everyone kind of jumped all in with Mario Cristobal, thinking Miami was going to be a contender in the ACC. And they just haven't been able to do that. And you see that some of that is because they just don't have the players just yet. And some of it is they lack some of the physical toughness that we thought Mario would bring there. So those are probably my disappointments.
I would agree with those. This text here from Chris on the Titan More text line, you already touched on UCLA, but his question was, can they run the table in the Pac-12 because USC's defense is terrible?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they can. And this is, I think, the thing that really benefits UCLA right now is the fact that, look at their offense. They've got a talented, running back in Zach Charbonnet, who's done an amazing job. He was at Michigan for a couple of years. He's done an amazing job on the ground there. And then you look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback. He's a fifth-year guy. He's a guy who understands exactly what the offense needs to be. Him and Chip Kelly are in sync right now. The offense is putting up a lot of points. And Chip Kelly's kind of done that quietly. Normally, Chip's a big, braggy type guy. He's done that really kind of quietly there. Now he's got to beat USC, though. That's going to be the challenge. USC's offense is good. It looks good under Lincoln Riley. Caleb Williams obviously is playing the elite level, but their defense has had some issues, and you've seen it over the last couple of games.
Hey, Chris Doring Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Matt Murschel on the Titan More hotline. He works for the Orlando Sentinel, covers the country in college football. I got a question from Andy, brought to you by Melton Law. He says, Matt, it's a month out, but how do you see the Gators-Knowles game playing out?
That's going to be an interesting one because you got two programs right now that they're definitely trying to to get themselves kind of right in it, so to speak. As programs themselves. I think Florida State's done a better job this year than they have in the last couple. Obviously, I think Mike Norvell's added some good key pieces to them. They're just in the middle of a really brutal stretch. I mean, everyone knew looking at their schedule, Wake Forest, NC State, Clemson, that was going to be a challenge for them. They've shown areas where they've got improvement, and they've shown areas where they need to get better at. Same thing for Florida, as we just talked about. There's areas where they've got to get better at. I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think this is going to be a really competitive game. And it's really going to kind of come down to, who doesn't make the mistakes when they need to. I mean, the last couple of years, if you make a crucial mistake here or there, it's kind of flip the game. I think that's going to be the challenge for them. If either one of them, whoever plays perfect and the quarterback plays better, I think you're going to see an opportunity to win some games. Both these defenses are going to be challenged. Obviously, both of these quarterbacks have some mobility and have a good arm. So I think it's all really going to come down to who doesn't make the mistakes, who doesn't have the penalties, and who doesn't have the drop balls.
I think that's what's going to happen in the Swamp Saturday night. They're the same exact teams playing each other. John asked, here's a good one. Matt, who is on the hot seat and who gets fired next?
Ooh, that's another good question. Who's on the hot seat? I think Brian Harsin at Auburn is on the hot seat.
No question.
I'm surprised he wasn't. Honestly, I kind of felt like if depending on what happened in that Georgia game, he might have been fired this past weekend. I think everyone's on hot seat watch in Auburn. They want to see what's going to happen. It's an unusual situation for Brian. Brian wasn't an SEC guy. He was brought in. They got rid of Gus. Kind of, I'm not sure why they got rid of Gus. I know some of the boosters and fans didn't like him. But again, you pay a lot of money to get rid of Gus. You've been Brian Harsin, who has no connection really to the SEC, and he was never really kind of embraced by that fan base. And now you've got all these big money boosters, and you got people who are trying to give the money to the NILs and start trying to get their program back. They're unhappy with Brian and they want to see him get out there. So my guess is he's next up. I mean, he's especially now when you look at a guy like Matt Rule, who just got fired from Carolina Panthers. Matt Rule's out there. He's probably going to be one of the top coaching candidates out there next year for college jobs. So there are a lot of Auburn guys who probably want to see Matt Rule take his place there, or even maybe a Lane Kiffin if someone can talk Lane Kiffin into leaving Ole Miss, which I don't think is going to happen.
Yeah, but speaking of Lane, Lane, I believe, is making over $7 million in Oxford. They're winning 8, 9 games. They may win 10, who knows? But the Ole Miss folks, trust me, I grew up in that state. They're going to love that. If you do that every year, they're going to build a statue of him. Why the hell Lane would want to have to go to Auburn with that mess of an athletic program regardless if they pay. I mean, what's the difference between 10 million, 11 million, and 7 million? I mean, am I wrong there? I just don't see Lane taking that job.
No, and I think you're right. It all comes down to what sort of stability do you have in the athletic department. You're looking at Auburn, who's got to get an athletic director. The department has been kind of a chaos in the last 5 or 6 years. Do you want to leave a good, stable job at Ole Miss and go somewhere in Auburn where you're going to have to butt heads sometimes with whoever they bring in as your athletic director? I'm with you. I don't think Lane. I think if Lane leaves, Lane's going to leave for a job that maybe is one of those elite jobs that he feels like you can't give up, or NFL. He would go to NFL. Yeah. So I think he's happy where he's at. Obviously, he'd love to see more fans in the stands. I mean, I know he's griped about that a couple of times this year, but that's part of being a college football coach. So to me, I think Harsin's the guy. I think if Auburn guys could come in there, they'd love to either get Matt Rule or they would love to get Deion Sanders. But I don't think Deion Sanders is going to Auburn any stretch.
Let's touch on Deion, because I saw the video about Eddie Robinson Jr. Raising hell, basically, in it. Mm-hmm. And I had some people ask me, I don't know if it was on my program yesterday or another one I was on. I saw clips of it, but I guess he had no problem with Deion as a player or as a person, but it was the way that Deion acted before the game, and then he threw like a hitch and go with like 5 seconds to go. Is that what it was?
Yeah, essentially it was. They said that they were on the field practicing, getting warmed up, and Deion kind of walked through their huddle, just kind of without asking, or just kind of which is kind of disrespectful. I mean, there's ways to get around the field. He walked through their huddle and their warm ups, and I think that obviously upset Eddie Robinson Jr. Which again, you're coming from a family, you know how it's done right. Your dad did it right, So I think that kind of happened. Then you mentioned he threw the hitch and go. That kind of upset him. I think if you think about this, Deion's done an amazing job for the SWAC. He's done an amazing job for the HBCUs, coming in there and bringing a lot of attention to them. But if you've been there for a while and you see that what the struggles have gone through, and then Deion kind of comes in there, swoops in there, throws some money around. There's a lot of money being made now, and says, "Look what I've done." All of a sudden I could see where you maybe feel a little bit of disrespect there. Like, okay, well, we're the guys who kind of set the foundation. We're some of the foundation there. How can you do this? Especially when you know that Deion more than likely is probably going to leave at some point in the next couple of years to take a job, in the FBS, whether it's going to be Power 5 school or whatever. So you can see a little bit of that where they might be thinking of, okay, calm down a little bit. You're kind of brash and bravado. We understand that. We've done a great job here, but you still have to show us the respect. There's still a respect factor there. And I think maybe that's where kind of the tipping point was.
Do you think he gets a job at the big boy school this year?
I think he does, but I think he's going to wait. I mean, I know a lot of people want to see him at Georgia Tech. I don't think that happens because of Georgia Tech's academic standards. I mean, they're so high, and I don't think that he'd come in there and do that right away. I think he gets a job. It's just he's going to look and see what's out there. And if there isn't a great job out there and he feels like isn't the opportunity for him, I think he'll probably end up waiting. Now, obviously, people would love to see him at Florida State, but if Mike Norvell continues in the path he's at, I'm not sure that you make that move. And I think if you're Deion, you want to make sure it's the right job. It wouldn't hurt to have another year under your belt, obviously. But he's kind of getting to a point where you're at the pinnacle where you're at this spot, and what else are you going to be able to do? And I think there are going to be jobs out there, and there's going to be an AD out there who's going to want to throw a lot of money at him, or a booster out there who's going to want to throw a lot of money at him to come somewhere else. But he wants to go somewhere where he's going to be prime time and he's going to get a lot of attention.
Yeah, John has this question. It's a pretty good one here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melon. He says, if you are a college AD, is your first choice Urban Meyer or Matt Rule?
My first choice is Matt Rule, and I know I get Urban's track record. I know what Urban has done. I think Urban's a little toxic even now. Even just what's happened with the Jacksonville job and everything. Matt Rule is a proven guy who comes in. He's turned programs around. He did it at Temple. He did it at Baylor. The NFL, as you know, Shane, is a different beast. That you lose a lot of the things that you do at college level. Some of these guys are really good recruiters. That doesn't translate well in the NFL. And so I think Matt Rule would be a more solid pick. And I think he's done some good things there. Urban, again, I mean, if you can put all the other personal stuff aside, he's a tremendous coach, but he's struggled the last couple of times out. And I think you're taking a big risk if you bring Urban in, because you need to have the success that kind of follows with it.
Daryl asked here on the Titan and More text line, do you think Auburn would go after Hugh Freeze?
It might. I mean, there's enough time, but that there's a lapse for Hugh that you could make that move now. I mean, I know everything that happened, but he's done his time at Liberty. I think there's he's had success at Liberty as well. Hugh's going to get a job somewhere. I mean, there's going to be a move like that. He was a hot candidate a couple years ago. Now his name's not really been at the top of the list, but I think there's going to be an 80 out there if you want to show how to get your team up there, scoring a lot of points and kind of doing the right way things at times. I think he would be a guy maybe they'll be interested in. There's, like I said, this is going to be an interesting offseason when it comes to coaching moves, because I think you're going to see, like we did before, you're going to see a lot of big names maybe be tempted to go elsewhere just to try to see how things are at.
All right, 2 questions and we'll get you out of here, Matt. Frank says on the Titan MR text line, speaking of FSU, why would Mike Norvell throw the ball in that situation last week when he could have kicked a field goal to win the game? I want to say they have kicking issues, correct?
Yes, they do. Ryan Fitzgerald, their kicker, has really struggled this year. I think he missed five of the last 7, 5 of the last 8 kicks. Really, hasn't had a lot of confidence in him. It really kind of cost him at times. That's the reason why basically he didn't go, he didn't kind of run the football and kind of set up the field goal situation. I think he felt like, they wanted to put the ball in Jordan Travis's hands and not the field goal kicker.
All right, last question. We got to touch on the XFL Orlando team. I know you talked to Coach Buckley. What can you tell all our listeners about what's going to happen down in Orlando?
Well, I think talking to Terrell, I mean, he's obviously, he's really excited about this opportunity. He's been an assistant coach at different levels. He really wanted the opportunity to be a head coach. He's excited to take over this team in Orlando. Obviously, it's spring football. There's been some interest there. Orlando's a great community in a sense of they're eager for sports and for football, and they're going to try to embrace that like they did in the past. You got draft coming up. It'll be interesting to see what kind of players they bring in. I think just having Florida names, having Terrell, having yourself, having some of Lamar, having some Lamar Thomas, having some more connections to the state of Florida is attractive for fans because you want to see some of these faces that you grew up watching playing. So I think there's going to be a lot of interest there. I mean, again, it's the XFL. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's got financial backing behind it. I think they've finally got a good deal with the television deal as well. So I think there's going to be a good opportunity to see some football, something maybe that kind of goes a little bit farther than the USFL has kind of done in the last couple of years.
Should be fun. Matt, let everybody know how they can follow you.
They can follow me on Twitter, Matt Murschel, or they can go to OrlandoSentinel.com and check out all the latest stuff we're working on.
Great stuff as always, buddy. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Shane.
Yep, that's Matt Murschel. Join us on the Titan MR Hotline. I'm going to take a quick time out, come back, and wrap up this Tuesday edition.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Ruse Ogra State Farm office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you, your family. Visit ograinsurance.com, 352-240-1779. I want to thank Matt Murschel and Buddy Martin for joining us on the Titan MR Hotline. Let's get to this day in sports before we get out of here. Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. give Comfort Temp a call at 352-376-2366. This day in sports in 1992, speaking of Deion Sanders, he played a game for the Falcons and the Braves in the same day. That's brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Make sure you tell all your friends and family to follow our programs on all the different platforms out there. Tomorrow's program, we'll have JC. We'll pick some games, some Peachland Dental picks. And we'll also have Mike Morgan from ESPN getting his thoughts on college football. We appreciate you tuning in today. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.